Welcome to the Winging It Travel podcast with me, James Hammond. Every Monday, I'll be joined by guests to talk about their travel stories, travel tips, backpacking advice, and so much more. Right now, I'm taking the podcast on the road travelling with me. So tune in every week for short-form episodes detailing all my travels alongside my Monday guest episode. Are you a backpacker, gap year student, or simply someone who loves to travel? Then this is the podcast for you, designed to inspire you to travel. There'll be stories to tell, tips to share, and experiences to inspire. Welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. We are covering days 92 to 96, and that is leaving Harris Beach State Park and going all the way up to the north of Oregon to Astoria before crossing into the Washington State for the next part on the next episode before finishing the road trip. So we left Harris Beach and made our way to Sunset Beach. And the first stop on the way was Whales Head Viewpoint. I would recommend this stop off because this is a little tricky in terms of getting down to the beach. It's about a 10-15 minute walk and it's steep. You park your car up, you head down, but honestly, the classic Oregon look. Hazy sea air, clean sand, no one there. Juts of rock in the sea. You put Oregon coastline in Google, this is what's going to come up. It's a bit like Harris Beach, just idyllic. And there's no one there. I know this is probably about, 19, 20 degrees, so it's fairly mild. It's not cold, but just no one there. So this is a fantastic stop-off point on the 101, and there's another classic beach scene in Oregon. This road is spectacular. There's forever viewpoints to stop off and just take a photo. As far as the eye can see, just scenery that goes on forever past the horizon. Then we got to Gold Beach and we stopped off at Gold Beach Coffee, Books and Art. And this place does a cafe inside with coffee, cakes and sandwiches. The weird quirk in there is they had orange twirls for, I think, 75 cents each. Like 5 or 6 if you're from the UK. You love a twirl. So we snapped them up with our coffee. Nice little break. Then we filled up the car with twirls and headed to Bandon, and another coffee stop which is worth recommending to you for is called Warehouse Coffee Cafe. Slightly off the main road, a huge space, it's a warehouse, lots of seating areas, some sofas, great coffee, but again, as always on this North American trip, the bagel and cream cheese is to die for. And it's right by the harbour, a little bit off the main road, not too far, maybe 5 minutes drive, free parking, great coffee, great bagel. Starting to rain quite heavy at this point, so we drove up to Sunset Bay Campground. Now for this campground and for a lot of state parks, I would advise booking online. They're about $19 to $21 a night, got all the facilities like shower, toilet, firewood as well. But this one had no one at the front desk as you drive in. It's just an empty sort of barrier really. And we weren't sure how to do it, but there was people working there and volunteering there, so we had to go and ask like, what's the go? And they told us to book online. Now, the problem with this place is there's no signal. The only signal we could find is right at the start of the campsite. As you drive in, there's a bit of signal there. So we have to park the car, kind of reserve one parking in a campsite. Hope it isn't reserved. All the way to the front, book online, and then walk all the way back. And then the volunteers come around and check off the list of who has reserved. Now, when you drive around without booking, you'll see it all as reserved, but it's not. Because if you go on the app, you'll find it available. So just book online if you know where you're going. And if you get there late, I guess you might be able to get away with it because how they're going to know. But the no signal problem is a huge problem because how do you book on an app with no signal? Fully comfortable facilities. We had a nice little area under the tree. We didn't get totally soaked. We cooked dinner underneath the hood at the back, so we didn't get soaked with rain. And we're right next to the toilets and showers. All in all, fairly comfortable, but a bit miserable in terms of a day. The next day, driving up towards Coos Bay and Dune City, that area. It's a slow day, really, because the rain was just kind of coming down quite hard. So we got to Coos Bay to go for a coffee and bagel at Cafe 101. I actually quite like the vibe in there. Coos Bay is an interesting town, looks very historic, maybe a bit old, maybe running out of ideas, if you like. But went into the Cafe 101, enjoyed the coffee, maybe a bit of a Christian vibe by some of the music that was being played. It made sort of more amusing by two old ladies behind us gossiping about their lives. Quite an interesting conversation that. After a stop off, we did make our way up to Dune City. And as you can hear, Dune City is a city with dunes in it. It's quite a unique city in that sense, a bit strange. But yeah, you can stop off on the way to just viewpoints of dunes. And we stopped off, walked around, got some photos of dunes. Very interesting. And then our campsite for the night for this day is Jesse M. Honeyman Memorial State Park in Oregon for $21 a night. As I said before, all the same amenities. Top tip here, if you're going along the west coast, especially Oregon, make use of the state parks in the height of the season. I would probably book in advance. At this time of year, heading into October, not really a problem. But they're just great facilities, quite basic, enough space, quiet. They're decent. Day 94, we're heading up to one of the main areas of our trip, which is basically heading towards Cannon Beach. But on this day, we're going to check out Thor's Well, Newport, in the Hammond State Park. A stunning drive up. I can't recommend this drive enough. Just unreal views every kilometre you go up. But the first place I want to see was Thor's Well. Now, if you put that into Google, you're going to see these amazing photos of basically this hole in the ground that looks like a well, and the water from the waves gets crashed into it, and then it sort of calms a little bit and all sort of filters down into the well. That is true, but it is hard to see. You have to really find it out. When I went there, I thought it was going to be like this huge hole that you can see from the trail, but it's actually, you need it pointed out to you. There's no real signage to say where it is, and it's not as obvious as you think. That's the quality of the photographers who make it easy, but it's definitely interesting to go and see that. After that, we needed a coffee, so I went to White Rabbit Espresso in Newport. Now, Newport is a classic sunshine town. Yeah, it's decent vibe, good weather, along the coast. It's got that sort of holiday feel, I think. A bit more upmarket, maybe, not sure. That's my vibe. White Rabbit Espresso was a great stop off for a very comfortable couch. Coffee was great, and much needed Wi-Fi at this point. At this point, our phones on the Verizon have run out, and we have no data, so we're kind of itching for Wi-Fi just to catch up as well. Then we popped off to Lincoln City, further up the 101, to a cafe called Salt. The same sort of thing, great vibe, nice couches, good coffee. And we were going to stay at a Safeway overnight to save on money. Now, the problem with the 101 in the Oregon coast is you go on Eye of the Lander, there just isn't many places to stay for free. If you're self-contained, you could probably just go off on the road and stay somewhere. But for a campervan like ours, we kind of need somewhere semi-official. And the reason we picked Safeway is because they have a toilet. When we parked there, we got our shopping done, and there's just some maybe locals maybe hanging around. Just didn't feel like maybe I want to stay there overnight. There's one other van there, so we decided to pay for another 2 nights, and that was at Nehalem State Park, which is a bit further up on the 101. So we booked 2 nights there, and that's going to be our base for Cannon Beach. This campsite is about $20 a night. Huge campsite. It's got its own beach. It's a bit out of the way. If you put Nehalem State Park in Google, it kind of looks to the left like a jut out into the ocean. It is a bit like that, but very quiet, deer about as well, all the facilities. Quite enjoyed the vibe there, and you do see someone as you come in person. There's people working at the campsite there, and that's very comfortable for the first night. This is a patron shout out to Laura from the Swamp Soup Stickers, who has contributed £5 to the podcast on my Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it, and it helps the podcast to keep going in the future. If you're interested, head to the show notes where you'll find a link to my Patreon. The website address is patreon.com/Winging It Travel Podcast. For £5 English, you will receive some trendy stickers from myself in the post, a shout out on each episode, and also my digital travel planner by email. Thank you for your support. Day 95 is one of the main places to see on our trip, and that's Cannon Beach. We've all seen the photos and the social media clips. The classic one, if you put it in Google or Instagram, is someone walks down the path, there's a house to your left, nice little bit of fence, and it just opens up into the Haystack Rock. That is true. We visit there. But first of all, glorious day. About nearly 30 degrees this day, so a unique day in that sense. To the point we're worried that the campervan's going to be too warm. Back in those days again. But there's free parking in Cannon Beach. You might have to walk into the centre a bit more, but free parking is available, and we kind of level with that Haystack Rock road, if you like. And we parked there and walked into town. The first place I recommend for a great coffee is Insomnia Coffee. They have a nice little cafe right by the beach, and they're the only ones open on a Sunday actually. So we popped in there, had a coffee to get filled up for the day. And I love walking around Cannon Beach. It's a bit like Venice Beach vibes, if you like, in LA. Very clean, quaint, lots of independent shops, good vibe. Yeah, a bit expensive, I think. It's going to cost a bit to live there, and it's right by the beach. You can hear the waves. It really is one of those towns that's sensational, really. We walked around, got a cake, went to a few yarn stores, got a bagel, and then walked onto the beach. Now, I keep mentioning the beaches in Oregon are amazing, and they are, but Cannon Beach kind of typifies the scene where the beach goes on forever. It's a huge beach, and it goes all the way out for miles, and the squeaky sound of the sand just makes it that idyllic place to sit there, have a cup of tea and admire the view. And in the distance, you can see Haystack Rock. Again, it's got that sort of hazy feel to it. We hung around there, got some photos, got some videos, and walked all the way back to Haystack Rock. Iconic, very popular site this. Put it in Google if you don't know what it is. Love to get in the photos of that. Then we sat down on the beach and enjoyed ourselves. But actually, it was a bit too hot, so we had to go out to a brewery. But before the brewery that we went to, level with Haystack Rock is that area where you go up the steps to basically someone's almost like an alleyway through two houses. And if you want to get the classic video of that, go up the stairs, go sort of towards the road, then walk back down on yourself. Get that iconic video that you need for Oregon coast. Because the sun was beating down on us quite a bit, we walked back up those steps, back onto the road, and went to a brewery called Pelican Brewing Company. They do beer and fries, nice little setting, very busy, very big, classic brewery. And then drove back to camp, which is about a 20-minute drive from there, and had a second night very comfortably at the campsite. And Cannon Beach is a must on the west coast. I can see why people go there all the time. I say it's probably about an hour and a half from Portland if you're based there, and it's right on the 101, free parking, great cafes, good restaurant options, an amazing beach, and just somewhere you want to hang out in the summer especially. And even in the off season when it's not too busy, I'd love to go back. What a place. Then we're going to finish this episode on day 96. We're driving up to Astoria, which is kind of the last town in Oregon before we cross the bridge into Washington State. Another glorious day, left Nehalem Park, and we wanted to go and check the Astoria town out. We had to do some admin, some washing there. Then we went into town to a couple of cafes, got a couple of recommendations for you. Rusty Cup, amazing bagel. How many great bagels we're having. Bagel and cream cheese, coffee, no better combo. But they don't have any toilets. Now, the one problem with Astoria is toilets. They have a public toilet. They have one I could find. I was desperate. I needed to go, not just for a week. So I was running around town trying to find somewhere. Hotel signs have got no entry for public toilets. Interesting. So I found the public toilet and someone's in there for ages. So I went back again. And then I realised that there's some people just doing drugs in there, unfortunately. Bottles on the floor, syringes, wasn't a nice little sight to see. So my only advice is, if you get a rusty cup, make sure you don't need a toilet. So then we walked around Astoria for another coffee because I needed to go to the toilet desperately. And we found one at Blue Scorcher, which is a great cafe for food, coffee, and a toilet. Can't believe I'm saying that. But Astoria, I loved it. Down the front, they have like this little iconic train. I think it actually works to transport people from one part of Astoria to another. It's not a huge place. It's almost like a toy train. But you can walk down there and take it. I think it's $1 or $2, maybe even free. I'm not sure. So that was a nice little part of the town. And Astoria is quite historic. Maybe it's run down a little bit now, but I quite like the vibe actually. Quite liked how it felt. But it has got a homeless thing going on there as well. And we decided in Blue Scorcher that what's the point hanging around in Astoria? We're not going to stay here. Let's get all the way up to Ocean City, which is in Washington. When you cross from Astoria over to Washington State, it's a huge bridge. I think it's about 4 miles long. Massive bridge, great scenery. This day, clear blue sky. You can see left, right, and centre. And we're going into Washington State, which is the basically last place we're going to go to before back to Vancouver. On the left-hand side of that state is Ocean City. And again, they have a state park, $20 a night, very comfortable. Ocean City's got a little bit going on, but I'll go into that into the next episode. So thanks for tuning in. That's the penultimate episode of this road trip USA. Next one's just going to be Washington State before we head back to Vancouver. And I look forward to wrapping up this iconic trip. I can't believe at this point of the road trip in terms of the podcast, we're nearly 100 days in, and it's going to be over 100 by the time we finish. We're going to do a final episode, me and Emma, just wrapping up my thoughts on the USA 5.5 to 6 weeks that we completed in our campervan. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Cheers. Hey, yeah, just a quick one. I just want to say there are many ways to support this podcast. You can buy me a coffee and help support the podcast with $5. Or you can go to my merch store with the affiliate link with TeePublic, where there's plenty of merch available to buy, such as t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, and also some children's clothing. Thirdly, which is free, you can also rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or Good Pods. Also, you can find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Simply just search for Winging It Travel Podcast, and you'll find me displaying all my social media content for travelling, podcast, and other stuff. Thank you.